Child labor was not as commonly known as an issue because they mainly worked on farms and in their homes. But once the Industrial Revolution came, it was easy to have children working on factories and mines at lower wages.
Child labor in education became a problem throughout the 1800s as families struggled maintaining children's health because of hunger and illness. Before the Industrial Revolution, child labor wasn't as needed and didn't have as harsh of conditions. Kids became extremely sick because they were breathing in coal dust for very long hours, and if they injured themselves and couldn't work, they would be fired and replaced immediately. Children were much smaller than adults, and thus they worked in small spaces where adults couldn't fit.
Following these conditions, people began to notice a change in children's health and investigated these conditions. During these investigations, they asked about work life and how children were treated. The government discovered that children as young as 5 often worked from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. with only one break, and if they were slow in performing their tasks, they were abused physically and verbally.
Afterwards, Parliament passed the Factory Act to ensure the law was enforced by mines and factories with teams of inspectors to guarantee they were following the law. More laws were later passed to ensure education for their children.
Before these laws, children were not provided the proper education they needed. Children worked and begged on the streets to help support their families. Children of wealthier families had the privilege to go to the school, which they were supported through sponsors.
The government also provided the schools with financial aid and began to engage more into education. In 1833, education became mandatory for children 9 through 13 for 2 hours per day. Later, in 1880, children 5 through 10 had to receive 6 hours of education per day. These schools provided the basic learning of reading, writing, and arithmetic.